This is the Energizing India podcast.
The recent announcements of PLIs and other related investment SOPs for the production of lithium-ion batteries and other parts of the EV ecosystem in India have been breathtaking. The aggressive pace has continued with the fiscal budget that was presented by the Finance Minister in early February of 2022, with firm policy announcements on battery swapping infrastructure for 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles. The policy objectives are clearly a massive shift to clean mobility by 2030. We already have determined on the podcast that the present buying cycle of ICE vehicles is likely the last one where EVs are not the logical procurement choice, and that when the vehicles being procured in 2022 come up for replacement in 3 or 5 years, the natural buying decision will very likely be an EV rather than an ICE vehicle. Unless the EV industry itself messes up the golden opportunity presented to it. As of February 2022, India has a few million electric rickshaws in varying battery technologies, including lead-acid and lithium-ion chemistries on the road. There are some 200,000 electric scooters and less than 20,000 personal electric cars. The passenger car segment in particular has had very low penetrations, with only a few OEMs offering EVs. Today, there are only 3 in the market as of early 2022. New launches planned this year include the top end, with the Mini Cooper Electric, the Volvo XC40 Electric and the Mercedes EQA. At the other end of the spectrum, Tata and MG plan to launch new EV models in the 10 to 15 lakhs price spectrum. But yet the choice for buyers is very limited, and there is a disconnect looming. So what's the go? What is the industry doing wrong, and what is hampering OEMs from keeping up with the hype that they have created themselves? To help examine this subject, today we speak to Cyrus Dhabhar, Head of Content at Powerdrift, India's biggest automotive media house. My name is Ravin Mirchandani, and this is the Energizing India podcast. Cyrus, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. First of all, you have a phenomenal podcast voice. Okay, let's get that straight out. You should do more voiceovers for Powerdrift as well. I'm more than welcome to come and join in. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. I love the setup. And let's talk EVs, because it's something that I've been advocating now for a long time, much before Powerdrift or my autocar days, for example. And in fact, I just thought of this. My first ever video that I ever did on YouTube was an electric car, which was way back in 2013, sometime late 2013. So it's been a while.
So that was the rave I expected.
It was the E2O. With the midlife upgrade to the Mahindra E2O, not the 4-door, still the 2-door. It was a yellow color 2-door, and it was the midlife update to the E2O. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been almost 10 years now. Yeah.
So how was that experience? You had a car, 2013 electric. It's 9 years ago. Did you think that it'll take this long for the uptick?
Honestly, yes. Because at the time we were really early into the electric game. Mahindra, of course, Reva first, and then Mahindra taking over Chetan's projects and the company. At the time, for example, of course, there were no electric chargers in Bombay, also in Mumbai. I don't want to be politically incorrect there. I had to charge it at the Dadar Pasi Colony Gymkhana's pump room overnight, which they were not very happy about. But we only had the car for a couple of days, so charging it overnight and then sort of sneaking into the Gymkhana and removing the plug. I mean, it didn't make much of a difference to the electricity bill. But even then, the fact that you can get this instant power right at sort of zip away from a stop line or from a signal, and have a very small footprint, which was great in a city like Mumbai, where the traffic is absolutely bonkers, still is. It was great. And again, quiet mobility. Sometimes you just want that. It's a more relaxing sort of commute mostly. So sometimes you just want that after a tiring day. You don't want to shift gears a million times. You don't want to rev and then move and then brake and all of that. So I think yes, it's been a while coming, but I think the next few years are going to be critical, and I think the progress in the next few years is going to be actually much faster than what we think it will be. Even for us, although we give it a very relaxed timeline of say 2027, 2028, where it becomes much more mainstream, I think it's going to be much earlier.
So coming from we've jumped straight into the subject rather than talk about you. We'll come back to that. A far more interesting subject, talking about Cyrus. But You're from the auto industry, right? And when you consider auto journalism, it's about looking under the hood and seeing the 4 cylinders, the 6 cylinders, the direct injection, the torque. And yet, the EV industry is going to change all of that for even your sector, isn't it? What is auto journalism going to look like when you look under the hood and see a box? And it's a boring old EV with not much more that you can talk about.
So I think there are two ways of looking at this. First of all, yes, as a traditional, and not just an auto journalist, as a traditional car guy, which I am. I mean, I have 3-cylinder engines, 4-cylinder engines, 6-cylinder engines at home, single cylinder as well. As a car guy, you will obviously be averse to the EV because, it doesn't have an engine, blah, 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 blah. That's all nonsense. I think that's absolute. I mean, I'm trying very hard to reel my vocabulary in. I think the car guy will actually, once he goes and actually drives a decent EV, will be a quicker adopter to the EV than the normal public will. From the auto journalist perspective, I think we are on the verge of an absolute revolution because we're on the verge of cars or platform designs where the sort of the bottom end will be the same and then you'll have different top hats. So I can safely say that coach building is coming in back in a big way. Resurrection of design is coming back. I mean, you are going to see some absolutely fantastic looking cars. I mean, look at the Rivian, for example. It's such a beautiful looking design. I mean, I'm not a big fan of pickup trucks. Let me put it out there. But as a design language, things that they've done with that car, the space management is unbelievable. Look at the Lucid Air. What a beautiful looking car. Look at the Teslas, for example. I mean, I remember driving a Tesla in 2017 when the Model 3 had just come out. And it was like nothing we had in India. So I think from a design perspective, we're going to have that sort of new age boom come in. And again, there'll always be a need for an auto journalist, maybe not in the more traditional way like you see. I think the print journalism, and there's no disrespect to my colleagues out there, okay? but I think the print journalism side of things needs to sort of end. It is more digital, it's quicker content that's going to be consumed, which we are, of course, in the space that we're at. There will still be differences in electric cars though. Suspension setup will still matter. Ergonomics will still matter. The way the car makes you feel will still matter. There will still be electric cars with souls. Let's not count that out. There are still some electric cars which are still great. Like the Porsche Taycan is a perfect example, right? It's still, I mean, as an electric mobility tool, it's probably not the best considering the range, but it still makes you feel like you're in a Porsche. There are some cars that don't. There are some cars that are a little soulless, but well, it's going to be a mixture as it is now. So I think the need for auto journalism will still be there. Will it still be as mainstream or as romanticized as it is today? I have no idea. But I think that'll continue.
So there's two things that you mentioned there that I want to explore a little bit. The first one is design. Actually, both the questions are around design. You talked about how Tesla, Rivian, these are all sexy designs. And from your perspective, are these sexy because the whole EV architecture allows them to be sexy? Or are they sexy because they need to be sexy so that they attract your attention, being away from the traditional automotive ICE vehicle and grabbing your eyeballs to come and make the decision to buy an EV?
No, I think it's because of the fact that they can be. I don't think they need to be sexy because if you actually look at sales figures for all the major electric cars, they still look like normal cars. In that era where electric cars needed to look futuristic for the sake of looking futuristic, that's gone. They look different from what normal cars are today because automakers are still putting that effort to actually make a new range or new design language for their EVs, like Hyundai is doing with the Ioniq range, for example. But look at the Mustang Mach-E. It looks like, I mean, if it had a normal engine in it, it would look like a Ford SUV, right? Tesla, for all intents, looks like a car, more like a crossover for the X and the Y. But the S looks like a normal car. It looks like a nicer Camry. Okay, and I'm not taking away from the Camry. The Camry is a great car because it does everything so well. I mean, it's a very, very comfortable car, etc., etc. The Lucid looks like, I mean, look, we're also moving into a design language shift in general, right? Some people are still sticking with their roots. Some are going absurd with their roots, like BMW with the extra large grills. But people like that. So I think we're going to be seeing a mix of design. And it's also because, I mean, you have that freedom to do whatever you want. That space, you don't have that lump of metal in the front, which is the engine. You don't have that drive shaft going down. You don't need, sort of an axle in the back. You can put wheel hub motors or whatever. You can work around these problems. And of course, you can stack the batteries on the floor, and you can do all these things which give you the freedom to do great designs. I see some very, very, very pretty looking cars in the next 10, 15 years.
So here's the rub. Then my second question on design is, it's Elon Musk that pushed this entire industry down this road to EV. The traditional legacy automotive companies resisted. They were all petrol heads, diesel heads, didn't understand the technology, and now they're forced into this. And so today the EV is actually a retrofit almost on the same platform, right? So then you have the issue of batteries underfloor, for example, with the EQA, where I saw one of the reviews, which was very striking, that when you sit in the back seat, it's in fact because there's no drivetrain underneath and the lithium battery cells are under the floor, your feet are so high, it's an uncomfortable position to be sitting on. So why do you think we're in this position where we are retrofitting the existing line, just as you talked about the Mustang, but you have lots of inconvenience as a result for being an EV? Do you think it's because they're rushing to the market? Because it's completely juxtaposed to what you just said about beautiful designs coming. Where's that rub?
Yeah, so it is people rushing to the market because, as of 2 months ago, I think Tesla was the highest selling car in the US and the UK. There are certain countries in Europe where 50% is electric cars, stuff like that. So obviously it is a big market chunk that the traditional automakers want to grab. Now, all of them were late to the party. Let's be very honest. The Mercedes group, the VW group for sure, BMW. I'm not even going to start talking about Toyota yet because that's a sleeping giant. But they have the technical ability to move things quickly and bring out an retrofitted electric car on an existing platform, which is what the EQC is, for example. It still looks cool, but it's a GLC with an electric powertrain.
That's right, yeah.
But that life cycle has sort of now ended, and now we're seeing bespoke products coming in, like the i4, for example, iX. Look, you might or may not like the design language on the outside. There's no denying the fact that is a stunning car to look at. In terms of design, it's a polarizing car, and design should be polarizing. Not everybody should like your design. That's the point of design. That's the point of good design, rather. That's something that's scratch built as a platform, right? The EQS is scratch built. Whatever C-Class, E-Class electric version will come. When the E-Class electric comes.
EQE is also actually...
Yeah, when that comes in, right? That's it. The E-Class is Mercedes' biggest seller in the world. Mercedes sold what? 2-point-something million cars in 2021. I see a gigantic chunk of that by 2025, 2026 going to like the EQE, because that's where the actual market is. That segment of customer wants an electric car, because not only is it going to be full of tech and range, but also I think at a point where those European customers especially, buying that will be more important to their image than buying a normal car. I don't think it'll be acceptable where buying and driving an IC car might not be socially acceptable in the
within this
near
decade.
future.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Absolutely within this decade.
So let's talk about the sleeping giant. And the reality, they're all sleeping giants, aren't they? Because first there was this resistance to come to electric, then there was this dichotomy of do you want to do electric or hydrogen? And so, a few companies like BMW and Toyota went down the FCEV hydrogen route, and a few committed to electric like Mercedes-Benz. A few were late to the party like Volkswagen. And then Toyota was sitting in the middle, not quite sure, launched a Mirai in the hydrogen space, and now is coming very quickly into electric. What's happening in these big companies? Why is there such a big amount of confusion on something that's imminently staring at them?
Let me add a third. Okay, let me say this first. Hydrogen as a technology is, I think, going to be very, very niche. I don't think people are serious about finding solutions to hydrogen as much as they're actually putting out in the public. And this is personal opinion. What I think is more viable as a solution for internal combustion are synthetic fuels. Which is of course something that the VW group is actively working on, Formula 1 is actively working on, and when stuff like Formula 1 does something and once it gets into racing and is usable, the mass market catches on really quickly. Coming to the electric things, yes, VW was late to the party, but what VW is going to do is democratize electric cars. Every review that you see about the ID4, for example, says that, oh God, it's damn boring to drive. But the normal person wants a day-to-day point A to point B transportation tool, and that is what that will be. When Toyota comes into the frame, the EV market will really, there will be a switch that goes from off to on the day a 500 kilometer range Corolla gets launched. I'm not talking about the Indian market. I'm talking about the international. I'm talking about the US. I'm talking about Europe. But yeah, when Toyota comes to the party, and Toyota will come to the party because that's what they always do, but they will come in ready. They will come in prepared that no issues happen. They will not be doing the test cycle on customers as we've seen some other automakers do. I'm not going to name who they are. But they've always done that. They've always been a little late, but they've always come in with products that are unbeatable in terms of what a car should be.
Absolutely.
It's not something that necessarily will move your soul, but it will move you and your family from point A to point B in absolute relative comfort, completely reliably, with great range.
So let's talk about the Chinese then, Cyrus. Two are on the road already. The third's going to come. So we've got BYD already. Haval's going to launch. What is your forecast for how that will change the Indian automotive market? Do you think they will be incredibly successful? Or do you see some geopolitical concerns in customers when they make decisions? Where's this headed?
Right. So let me talk to you about what MG has done to the Indian auto industry. MG's been there have been two disruptors in recent times, Kia and MG. MG has been a great disruptor in the EV space and the IC space. The MG ZS EV is genuinely a great product. Okay, at 20 something lakh rupees, there are a lot of people who want to buy a Creta or something a little more expensive, but have the infrastructure capabilities to install a charger, and they're buying the ZS EV, and the people are buying it. It's just set a sales record, personal sales record in Jan. I think, and I'm going to try and remain politically correct because I know there are implications to what I say. There will always be geopolitical concerns over something coming from China because of what the emotion in the country today is. Whether that changes in the next 3 years or not, we don't know. Whether I'd like it to change is something that's a personal opinion altogether, and I'm not going to discuss it at all publicly here or elsewhere. But you know what? They have the capacity to be successful. It's just going to be how how good are Indian or automakers that have been in India for a while, not necessarily Indian products, are as compared to these Chinese, because they always have this sort of edge on tech, right, at a good price point. But if you can offer something with equal tech at say 50,000 rupees more, then the Indian buyer will buy that. Because see, there's still this word of mouth thing in India, right? Irrespective of how good a website is or how good we make a review video, the end decision will always be, oh, let me ask my friend who's into cars what car to buy.
Absolutely.
Right? Or I get, every day I get 15 queries on Instagram about, should I buy this or should I buy that? And I've realized that us as journalists have a responsibility to tell people not what we like, but to sort of figure out what they need and tell them what fits their use pattern more. And people do buy it. And people have actually gone and bought products after we told. So it's a great responsibility that we have. But again, I think the Indian audience will maybe like Indianized products a little bit more, because see, there is also a big troll population on the internet that makes it a point to talk about how MG is Chinese, irrespective of whether they've put in money in India or not. I mean, the MG Hector and the Aster, for example, is a very, very, very good car for what it is. I mean, at 20 lakh rupees, that interior is mind-blowing. I mean, the leather quality is literally, it's better than an E-Class. It's Macan level, maybe not Macan levels, but like sub-Macan levels of leather in there. You know, it's really good. There are quirks, yes, but they need those quirks for us to talk about. If they just give us a normal car, we do a review and then forget about it, right? We've been asking them where the car is because we've not had a car after we've done the first drive. We want a car to drive around in. We want to use that little robot on the screen, on the dashboard, and see how annoying or how useful it is. So yeah, I mean, they've got, it's not like they don't have the machinery to do it. They do. They have the price competitiveness to do it as well. But there'll always be this emotional value in the Indian buyer which will make him buy a certain thing or not make him buy a certain thing.
So let's stay on the subject of Indian OEMs then. And I'm interested in your perception of what we are doing wrong. There's only 3 cars, as we discussed, at the moment. And there's, at the other end of the spectrum, there's a super luxury, but there's nothing in between.
Yeah.
You have Mahindra, who were early movers. As you said, 2013, the E2O, then they bought Reva.
Yeah.
And yet they're nowhere on the table today as an electric vehicle company. Tata came from behind. They've got now the 2 vehicles that they've launched. They've planned 8 or 9. There's, teething problems with them coming onto the road. What's the scenario here? What is the industry doing wrong? Why is it all so topsy-turvy?
So I think everybody was a little wary about electric cars as an OEM because they didn't know if it's said enough to actually warrant an investment of that size. Because it's not a cheap thing to do. I mean, it probably is cheaper than making an making an IC car from scratch, considering how many fewer parts you use. But it's still a car. It's still many, many crores. And today in the market, in 2022 or 20, whatever, launching a mediocre car just doesn't cut it. I mean, we will destroy it if it is mediocre. We've done that with bikes, we've done that with cars recently. It just doesn't cut it. I mean, look at Mahindra's progress in the last few years. From what they were, it's unbelievable. Today, their cars are international quality cars. Period. The XUV 700 is an international quality. I would buy one, 100%. Thar, I would buy 100%. Look at Tata Motors. Their punch is phenomenal. I mean, yes, it's got a weak engine, but otherwise, as a product, it's phenomenal. And when the Punch EV comes in, that engine problem gets sorted. So for Tata Motors, who's never had the best engines or the greatest engines, the electric platform is just a sensible thing to do because everything else around it is great, right? So your noise and vibrations, your engine performance, all of that just gets completely negated because there's an EV powertrain. Acceleration's faster, smoother, etc., etc. It doesn't shake the car up. So it's just a better product where people are more comfortable in. So for Tata, they're doing exactly what they need to do. The Altroz EV is coming this year. Great product. I mean, the Altroz again struggles because of an engine. Everything around it is beautiful. I mean, it looks great. I mean, it looks futuristic even today. I'm sure in whatever silver or white with the blue accents, it'll look even better. What people are doing wrong, though, I think, is they've been too conservative in the last few years. Now they've realized suddenly with the Nexon's success story that, oh no, we should have done more, which means now they're putting in a lot more effort. The negative side of that effort is they might rush to the market, but with EVs, there's not much you can do wrong. With an engine, there's a lot you can do wrong. You can make an absolute turd of an engine. And EVs, you can literally buy technology and put it in. You don't have to invest money into making a motor from scratch, making battery packs from scratch. Plus, all these things are anyways things you buy from people who specialize in these things. So I think that's what people have done, not paid. I think the timing's been a little off. But I think the Indian auto industry has always been a few years behind the curve. But that curve is much, much smaller now. We were, 15, 20 years behind the curve at one point of time. Maybe not that much. Maybe 10 years. I think it's down to 2 years, 3 years at the most. When Mahindra comes in with their electric SUV, we know it'll be great. Because the XUV 300 is around it a great platform. And Mahindra's always put an impetus on driving performance. So maybe not great range, but at least it'll drive really well. So that'll be a trade-off. Maruti, we know, will come in with mass market, absolute bang on, just what you need when it comes in. So I think conservativeness is what's been eating them up. And I don't see any other manufacturers in India really. I mean, Kia will, obviously. Hyundai will improve the electric portfolio. But probably Hyundai will move up in the range and not down. Because they have that product ready, the Ioniq 5. Ioniq. That's a great car. That looks really cool. And it's not as small as it looks in the pictures. It's a big car. But yeah, I think there's so much potential for everybody at every price point. And I don't think we will see a 5 lakh rupee electric vehicle.
So the 2 companies that you talked about, the 2 powerhouses of Indian automotive, Tata and Mahindra. And these are the companies to watch. And these are the companies that are most exciting as well. And make us very proud because both of them have come out of the bang. The Nexon, as you said, is an international quality car. And when you look at all the latest Mahindras, my God, I've driven the Thar. What a vehicle!
Yeah.
The SUV 700 brings tears to your eyes in terms of pride
Just
to see an
beautiful.
Indian product.
It's just, yeah.
What's changed in both of these companies that they've come out of the closet almost, so to speak, with a bang?
So I think with Tata, it's been a gradual improvement. Every Tata product is the best Tata yet. The Hector was the best Tata yet. Sorry, the Harrier. My God, the Harrier was the best Tata yet. The Altroz then was the best Tata yet. The next one before it. The Safari was the best Tata yet. The Punch now, today, in my opinion, is the best Tata yet. Don't get me wrong, the Safari is great. And what they're offering as options in the Safari as well, it's not just one car and one package. You can have 5 different variations at the top end, 5 different interior options, 5 different color choices. It's crazy. Tata has been a gradual move up. Tata also is a little less, this is because I know how Tata works internally. Tata is a little less averse to change, or was a little less averse to change in the past. I'm hoping it isn't anymore. We've seen some great improvements from Tata Motors every year on year. We know that their cars will be good cars. And their perception of how they are in the market has changed. So today people are going and buying one, not worried about how rubbish the service will be, because it isn't that bad anymore.
True.
Look, every service center in the country is as good or as bad as the other one, okay? Which is why I don't give my cars to any service. Well, I don't drive new cars also. That's different. Mahindra, on the other hand, has been a revolution. I think there are some very forward-thinking people involved. Anand, of course, gives the Mr. Mahindra. Anand gives the freedom to the team to actually think and do stuff. There are brilliances of auto passion in that company, which is lacking in a lot of other companies. There are people who are there are a lot of people who are actually genuinely interested in cars in Mahindra today as compared to almost any other automaker in the country. Okay, it is a car. If you were a car guy and you want to work in an automaker in the country, that's probably where you work. And I've had several friends move from the journalism side to the sort of marketing or to the product development, etc. side, and they're all happy there. And Mahindra also has had that freedom of being a slightly more agile company. Maybe not in the past, but definitely we're seeing that agility come in now, and they have that heritage to fall back on. Right? They've got some really cool heritage to fall back on, like the Jeep heritage and stuff like that. So they make the most use of it. I mean, look at the Thar. At the end of the day, it is a reimagined Jeep, right? But it is cool in its own right, and it's a very, very cool car. And with the XUV, they've taken their time. It's been years since we've seen the mules. I mean, that's been an internet joke, isn't it? The XUV, the Scorpio, for example, it's an internet meme. We'll have the coronavirus will end before the Scorpio gets launched, is what the meme is, the last meme. But that's not bad. Let them do their testing, because it sort of irons out the issues in these cars, because these cars are packing a lot of tech and they're tuned to Indian roads really well. I mean, the ADAS in the XUV 700 is I'm going to say this with authority and on the record, it's the best ADAS I have ever driven in my life, period. And I've driven Teslas and I've driven Volvos and I've driven Merc ADAS stuff, and this is for the Indian market. It actually works. It's basically a friend just tap you on the back and say, don't do that, just chill, and you sort of reel back a little bit, and that's what it does. It doesn't go and just slam on the brakes like a lunatic and makes you wonder what happened. It just gently taps the brakes and reminds you that there's something about to happen, and then you sort of take over. And if you don't take over, it does slam on the brakes. So it's these kind of improvements that they've done. Now, why it's happened is obviously something that we don't really know. There's obviously been money being pumped in, ideas being opened up, ease of actually making things happen, probably. I think there's a lot of young blood in Mahindra too.
So, Cyrus, staying with the theme of things that we're doing wrong, one of our worries is that the EV industry is in danger of a hype and a bubble being burst. As performance doesn't keep up with promises that are being made by some of the, particularly the startups who are seeking significant funding. For example, take Ola, biggest factory for electric vehicles in the world, and then struggling to deliver the first few thousand electric scooters, which then couldn't be charged because the charging network wasn't ready, and then they're teasing a launch of a new electric car.
You're going to get me in trouble now.
And Ola's just one example. There's many other bubbles that are being created. People are funding huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
And what I worry about is we will have, this happens every 10 years. There was a
Yes.
telecom bubble, there was the internet bubble, and it gets busted. And then people with real ideas and real passion and real capability to deliver don't get funded because the hype that was early on in the piece sucked up all the money and all the confidence and all the trust. So what's your perception of this?
You spoke about how this happens every 10 years. The auto industry has had this happen in the past. If you look at the 20th century, the early 15, 20, 30 years of the 20th century, right? We had 1,000 automakers, 15, 2,000, 3,000 automakers. I don't even know. I mean, every third person had an auto, had a car. Everybody was doing everything. I mean, there were crazy ideas. You know, there were electric cars back then, which were. I mean, sometimes they predate some really popular IC cars. Hybrid, diesel, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, blah blah blah. V10, V16, I don't know, straight 24 cylinder. God knows, everybody was doing everything. We're in the same zone. Because there is a chance for somebody who is a small player to hit it big. Who knew Microsoft? Who knew Apple would be Apple when they started? Who knew Facebook would be Facebook when they started, right? I mean, every time I see that movie, The Social Network, I'm just, it's unbelievable what Mark Zuckerberg has done. Today, there's a chance for a small, smart human being to come up with a concept and make it work. Which is why you're seeing these startups come in. The problem is, and there will always be this yin and yang, is for that one person, there will always be 10 dumb beeps trying to take advantage of the system. I know for a fact, when we get press releases, I look at them and I'm like, dude, this is a scam. There are so many automakers today. You know the best thing in the world? So, okay, let me give you this let me just turn back time a little bit, okay? When I was in Delhi, I stayed in Delhi for 3 years, 2.5. I was at NDTV, and one of the things I would cover is the EV Expo, right? And I was got a call from the PR lady one day, and she said, "So we want you to come and cover the EV Expo. It's like the biggest electric vehicle show in the country, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, how cool? Where is it?" It said Pragati Man. I'm like, "Oh, sweet. You know, it's the birthplace of the expo." Yeah, I'll be there, like for sure. Like it's crazy. So I get a couple of camera people. I tell my team we have to go there and all. And I go, super. Second EV Expo. Can I swear on this
Yes,
podcast?
you can.
For fuck's sake. It is the most disappointing piece of shit event or gathering of things that I've ever seen. I mean, apart from one automaker which had some potential, which was a known automaker, I'm not going to name. They didn't even bother covering up the Chinese signages on their car. They would put a sticker on top of that. You could see the Chinese name below it. I mean, do that at least. I mean, look, I know that there's this drive to make whatever little money you can. That's a great thing. I mean, you need to do that. But the kind of mediocrity that, I mean, you talked about how 1 million plus electric auto rickshaws. Name one that's decent. It's all rubbish. So this was a few years ago. Sadly, we've since then ridden a couple of electric scooters who've come out in this big way and said, we're doing these huge India investments and R&D. Bullshit. It's all literally copy paste. I mean, we found the bloody scooter on the internet at 30,000 rupees. You can import 1,000 of them at 25,000 rupees and you can sell them. They're selling them for a lakh. It's the exact same scooter. They haven't even changed the logo on it. It was absurd. So there is so much absolute rubbish in the industry, and this will always be the case. There'll always be this. It's probably more than 1:10 as a ratio, but there'll always be what do you call it? What's the term for it? Collateral damage. Sadly, if they're good enough, if they're really good enough, they'll always be successful. If they're good to a point where they're just good mildly, I don't think they're going to make it. But yes, we are going to see names that we've never heard of come on board and just completely revolutionize. I mean, look at Tesla. From what they were 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Or 15 years ago, more specifically,
Yeah.
with the Roadster, to what they are today. And what a jump it's been. And what a phenomenal. You might like Elon, you might not like Elon. I think he's a rock star. The fact that one person has the actual the ability to do change the way he does, I mean, he's earned it, isn't he? You like him or not is another factor, but you have to respect the guy.
Totally.
So, I mean, yeah, there's this huge. If we're on this moment of, it's just a revolution. I mean, it's a revolution. It's a mobility revolution coming. It's not necessarily an electric revolution. It's a mobility revolution.
So there will be, as you said, there will be a cleanup. People who don't
Yes,
cut
there
the
will be a
mustard
cleanup.
just,
There will be these big names who fall. Sadly.
So I want to tease out the whole concept of the world's biggest scooter factory in India at 10 million a year versus the reality of 50,000-60,000 being sold from the biggest factory today, which is doing a great job, Hero Electric, and has been doing so for 10 years.
Yeah.
I want to tease out your opinion here.
He's not been very kind to us, has he, recently, to the journalism fraternity. That will not affect my judgment, though. It's our job to put our personal, I mean, we might rant on it on Twitter, but when it actually comes to giving out an opinion, it's our job to keep our personal biases aside, right? I haven't ridden one, but I have booked one. The same way I booked a Model 3 when it came out, and not knowing whether we'll ever see it. I did sell my booking later on and make a little bit of money on it. It's different. But I have booked an Ola scooter because I use scooters. It is in Bombay, despite me owning more than a dozen cars, my absolute primary mode of transport is a scooter. And it's always been that. I use a scooter as an appliance, not as a vehicle. I don't get attached to my scooters. Okay, every 3 years, when I hit 10,000 kilometers, or every 2 years, 3 years, whatever, I sell it off and I buy a new one. I have gone through 3 of the same exact scooters back to back to back because I like them. I mean, I went through 3 Honda Dios, 2 Honda Activas, and now I'm on an Ntorq. And now I think I'm ready to buy an electric vehicle because now, as of 3 months ago, I have the capacity to put a charger where I live in my house in Bombay. So then why not? So the Ola was a great choice. It looks cool. I mean, you have the color options and stuff. I think he went a little overboard with his bravado and his marketing. There is potential of making a great deal of. I mean, I think if he just reels it down a little bit and does look, there is potential in that automaker or whatever as a company. There is potential, right? We've seen that they have the funds to do it, they have the space to do it, and it's a cool looking vehicle. Whether it rides really well or not, I haven't ridden it yet, so I'm not going to comment on that. But it looks cool, and that's half the battle won for a two-wheeler, to be honest.
Is there a reason you booked an Ola instead of Ather? Okay.
It was $500. Ather was there was no booking, and I've ridden the Ather. It's phenomenal. I just don't fit well on an Ather. It hits my knees. It is what it is. I love them. I really like them. I have several friends who bought them.
Excellent. So now I'm going to ask you a question that we normally end the podcast with. And it's the same question we ask every talent that comes on the show. And it's a very frivolous question, Cyrus, but it always gives a pointed answer. So I'm going to put that to you. And the question is, if you had the opportunity to be the Prime Minister of India for one day, just one day, and you could make any decision you wanted to help faster adoption of electric vehicles in India specifically, what would that decision be?
I'd put in a policy to allow EV swaps, as an IC to EV swaps, sort of fast track that, because it's happening. We've seen it happen. You've done it with a fear. I mean, it's very
the retrofit you're talking about.
Yeah, the retrofit thing.
That's interesting actually, because it brings to life a large segment of cars that are unused today.
Yeah.
For example, all of these gypsies coming out of service from the army could actually be retrofitted to electric and go back to forest service. There's so many other applications for them that you would not have thought about.
Idea. It's actually a damn good idea. Yeah. That, and also I think just the look. The automaker needs to be given something in return for all the efforts they take. Let's be honest, okay? You've put in. Now people will call me. They'll say I'm siding with the automakers. I am. right? Because we see both sides of, and we know how much the industry is struggling. Yes, they're making great amounts of or whatever record sales every few months or whatever, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily making a lot of money. There are some automakers that are really, really struggling, and some that shouldn't be here anymore. But I think a blanket, just a blanket tax break on some sort of EVs for 5 years would really fasten up, just to speeden up the adoption process. And then you'd have these players coming in, which you really need. But I think what Tesla is asking for is a little unfair, just for them. If there is a tax break to be given, I think it should be across the board. Tesla could have easily done this whole 2,500 unit, start with that. I mean, this is just a little stubborn, I guess. Although I haven't met the Indian team, I really would like to, if anybody's listening to me from Tesla, please reach out. It's cy@powerdrift.com. It's very easy. But I think that it needs to be some sort of leeway given, if not to the car makers, at least to the scooter makers, because that's going to be the first thing that falls, right? You aren't going to have EV cars on the market. It's not going to be a switch that pops. The two-wheelers are going to be the switch that pops.
Almost has.
It's very close to doing it, but it's still a while away. Again, mainstream makers like Honda need to come with an electric vehicle. Till Honda doesn't do it, till the Hero doesn't do, Hero, the bike maker Hero doesn't do it, it won't really happen. Yes, Acer can be there as a Tesla equivalent, which is so much more expensive than the Activa is. Or Ola can be around, or whoever, Bajaj can do with the Chetak, which I think needs a bit of a rehash in any case. Till these bigger automakers decide to sort of shake off their slumber and come in, I think we aren't going to have that. And I think the government needs to just sort of have a little bit of a easier view on them.
Well, Cyrus, it has been very informative. I'm sure all of our listeners really enjoyed this very candid conversation.
It's been lovely. Thank you so much for having me here. Very appreciated. I know it's a long time coming. Been promising it for a while now, but better late than never, I guess. Yes.
Thank you for having made the time. We look forward to having you back.
Absolutely. And I look forward to driving that Fiat again, the one that's parked below.
Excellent. Thanks, Cyrus.
You're welcome.